Previously on ICC Pass. What should be the most fundamental principle of any good family, especially one this big? Love. Nothing says love like getting harassed, putting up with it because you're told she might like you, and when you just can't take it anymore, go on a date with her or your own sister will hurt you too. Looking back at it, guys, even with the occasional tangent, I think that there's still a lot that was left unsaid when it comes to certain characters and even certain episodes in the Loud House, both good and bad, though in this case mostly bad. For how highly people look back on Season 1, I think we can agree that even this one's not safe from having its own share of garbage. One of them I've gone in detail well enough, but another, well, just like with the taunting hour, it feels like I just haven't said enough for my comfort. So today, we're gonna look at a character that really surprised me with her growth. Eventually, the cheapest shipping material this fandom has. No, that doesn't count. Wait, why is this even a thing? And one of the worst, if not the worst episode of Season 1, Save the Date. So, let's take a gander, shall we? Wait, hold on. Why do I feel like something's missing? Oh, right, angry Ronniecoln shippers. Working off of a dynamic from an earlier episode, Lincoln is on really confusing terms with Ronnie-Ann. Long story short, she bullies him, his sisters find out and try to intervene, but then they find out she's a girl. So screw all that resolve, they say kiss her now. Lincoln's dumb enough to agree because girls know better, or something, and you don't have to guess what happens. Okay, here's the first problem. Aside from one fun visual, this episode is awful and we're giving it a follow-up? Did we really need a successor to the toxic cesspool that is Arnold and Helga?
No!
Okay, to be fair though, at least Ronnie-Ann isn't a total creep, but in some ways like Helga, her behavior is practically encouraged by the narrative. Yeah kids, if she harasses you at every chance and she's so creepy she built a shrine, just slap a sad backstory on her, that'll make it all okay. Right? Not the worst example of this idea, but as you guys can see, it isn't really the most agreeable trope. And secondly, we gotta wait 2 more seasons and a spin-off to understand the character in question well enough. Even after this whole incident though, she still gives him her phone number, and apparently that's all it takes for him to let it all slide. Why? She humiliated you every chance she got. She still does. She gave you a black eye for jumping to the conclusion she wanted anyways, so now it's all good?
I don't get it.
And that's not even counting his sister's shallow behavior. Cut to the follow-up and Ronnie-Ann puts a sloppy Joe in Lincoln's pants. Just for the fun of it, I guess. And I don't know about you guys, but that kind of mess in my pants would definitely ruin my day. Wait, don't clip that out of context! So instead of helping him find a new pair or behaving like actual friends, what do his classmates do?
Ronnie and Lincoln sitting in a tree. K-I-S-S-I-N-G.
Okay, I'm no expert, but even borderline middle school kids are definitely at that age where they don't make fun of couples. At least in my experiences. Maybe it's their way of telling him to find someone better?
Boom. Roasted.
But that's just meta wishful thinking. Well, for now. But somehow, this is what pushes Lincoln past his limit when it comes to the girl in question. Not the pantsing, not the mess in his clothes, not the harassment, the violence, the pranking. Nah, he just has to save face over a girl he wouldn't realistically like anyways. And she's playing the victim when she overhears it. When I'm in a no self-awareness competition and my opponent is... Cut to later, and good news for Lincoln, I guess. He finds a replacement for his bully already. Hey, not that I do, but if I were to trust this narrative so far, shouldn't this dumb masochist be happy about that?
Do it harder.
Why is Lori lashing out, you might ask? Because, get this, Ronnie-Ann turns out to be her boyfriend's little sister. And this never came up in all the time she was bullying him. If you're wondering why this idea feels contrived or neglected, it's because the writers neglected it too. Originally, Ronnie-Ann was drafted with a relatively specific design, which, and I say this as a native Mexican, really explains a lot about the questionable rework we got. Apparently the plan was to always make her Bobby's sister, but they just overlooked this sore thumb of a rough draft when introducing him. Don't take my word for that though, Savino admitted it himself.
Well, Ronnie Ann started off as she was a white girl with red hair. I had an idea for an episode like, what if Ronnie Ann is Bobby's little sister? And how much drama that might cause. So we had to change Ronnie Ann's heritage to being Mexican American to match with Bobby Santiago.
But hey, whatever it takes to pitch that pandering spinoff, am I right? Totally in good faith. Hey, how'd it go with your third season? Sí, merecido. Descansa en paz, bobo. Moving on. Bobby dumps Lori because their siblings are on bad terms, which, even for how little we know about him at this point, it really doesn't match his character at all, let alone make any sense. Caring about his isolated sister is one thing, but dumping Lori on the spot for something she had nothing to do with is just petty and cruel. And even worse, the only way he'll take her back is if she and Lincoln go on a double date and get along. You heard him, Link. Date someone who you have every reason to resent, repress all your gripes, or your sister loses her boyfriend and she'll make you miserable. What kind of sociopath would encourage this behavior? Oh, right. So Lincoln tells Clyde the news, but then...
Clyde and Lori sitting in a tree, or there's no room for a dumb Bobby. Woo!
Can we all agree to be glad that the writers abandoned Clyde's crush on Lori? Not that the alternative wasn't forgotten too.
I mean, cry!
So here we are at Jean Juan's French Mex buffet? Alright. Lincoln is coerced into spending time with a girl he shouldn't even like as a friend. And yet, he's coerced into it for not even primarily her sake. Luckily, at least, the two bond over their siblings' melodramatic affection. Which, I gotta say, even for a pair of kids, their interactions are way too corny to stomach. If the dialogue felt believable, then I could let it slide, but this is almost turning red levels of exaggerated cringe. Okay, maybe not that bad. And then the same friends who provoked him earlier, quote unquote, conveniently show up at the restaurant. Wow, what are the odds? They tase Lincoln again, and he repeats exactly what forced him into this mess. Okay, I get that he may have worded some things the wrong way, but why does his narrative insist that they need to be friends, let alone more than that, when they have no real reason to want to be? Even for him, there's no good explanation for why he's being this dumb. Oh, wait, right, she needs a coattail to ride on later down the line. God forbid your lead bear her own identity instead of hinging on someone else. Or something else. It's not like the studio did it twice already. But anyways, in hopes of really just avoiding his sister's wrath, Lincoln starts glazing Ronnie Ann in ways that really don't add up, culminating in a kiss that did not feel warranted whatsoever. Yeah, tell me I'm wrong. I dare you.
I double dare you, motherfucker.
Normally, I'd say it's just a classic case of... But how do I trust that he was even doing this for her, or even for his own conscience when, again, he's shown little to no reason for falling for her, and secondly, he was manipulated or pressured into everything. Even with how believable their connection became later on, it says a lot when their most memorable moment was not earned in the narrative. Eesh, haven't seen a love story this forced and agenda-driven since, well, that other one we get later. I would think that maybe the threats, the breakup, and this whole arrangement was all a ruse, but that's never even implied. We never hear so much as a sorry from Lori and Bobby, or, oh yeah, we were always gonna get back together, we weren't gonna break up over this. Honestly, a line like that probably would have saved this episode half of its problems. Do I trust that Lincoln and Ronnie Ann were totally into each other from the start and they were just nudged?
No!
Am I supposed to believe that Bobby gambled the love of his life just for his sister's ego?
You realize how messed up that sounds, right?
Even if I did, I have not witnessed a shred of a legitimate or healthy relationship throughout this entire episode. And we're not done. Cut to the next day, suddenly Lincoln's fine with the teasing, but then Ronnie Ann, in hopes of stopping it, stages a breakup by literally slapping him out of it. Which would have been nice for him to know beforehand, but that's never implied either. As if those violent tendencies weren't part of the real problem in the first place. And oh, sure, now his peers are sympathetic and supportive. Gosh, is there a single character in this episode that isn't a callous idiot? But whatever, we gotta cram in more unfunny stereotypes to wrap things up. So yeah, hopefully y'all can understand why I've held this episode in so much contempt for a while now. However, even with the toxicity, the stereotyping, the pandering, and the misunderstanding of real romantic connections, even with how unapologetic this narrative seems about it all, maybe I would have appreciated it if ideally it had just committed to what it should have been building up to.